Welcome to Untrained. Hey, Whitney.
Hey, Iris and Joe.
Yes, we have Olympian Joe Jacobi with us today, a really good friend of ours. And I'll do the short bio, Joe, because I really think you do a great job of telling your story and then also kind of showing the audience. I know we're both podcast and video, but showing the audience where you are and why. So I'll do the short one, and then I'll throw it to you, Joe. Joe Jacobi is an Olympic gold medalist, performance coach, and author who collaborates with executives and leaders in midlife to navigate transition, reset from burnout, and ride spectacular life waves. Hi, Joe. We're going to ask you some questions, but then we're going to flip the script and you're going to be the host.
Well, I'm looking forward to this. I love your podcast. I listen to all the episodes. And I should also say that I think being here on this season finale of Untrained, that it just reminds me how grateful I am for the two of you and the impact that you've had on not just my development as a coach, but that also just means to me development as a human, which is why I love doing what I do. And you two have had different impacts on me, but just both so profound. And I feel that and sense that in every episode that I listen to, and the way that you share with people and the way you share yourselves with other people. So as we start, I just want to say thank you for that and for having me here to be with you guys. It's absolute delight.
So Joe, tell us a little bit about where we find you today and how you got there. We'll start there.
Those are two really interesting, different answers, but I'd love to quickly get into both of them. So today you find me at my home in La Seu d'Urgell in the Spanish state of Catalonia. And outside this window to my right, if you're watching on video, about 50 meters away is the 1992 Olympic whitewater canoeing channel, where my canoe partner, Scott Strausball, and I won America's first ever gold medal in the sport of whitewater canoe slalom at the Olympics here in 1992. What was interesting about that, in a sport like whitewater canoeing, it's very difficult to just stay in your home training site all the time. Like, you need to spend a lot of time on the Olympic venue because every whitewater river rapid in the world is different. It's completely unique to itself because of gradient, because of rocks, because of flow. So we knew we were going to spend a lot of time here in 1992. And we spent about 100 days here in La Seu the year before the competition. But as part of that, something really went beyond the working with the river. It was really connection to the community here, connection to the Catalan spirit and the Catalan people. And that is really what kind of showed up for us on race day at the 1992 Olympics. And later in my life, I had an opportunity to make a quality of life change, to take on a quality of life adventure. And living here in La Seu, I can't think of another way that I could have challenged myself to learn every day. I mean, I literally wake up just kind of thinking in a different language that isn't my native language. And it's not Spanish. I speak Catalan, which is the dialect that Catalans speak. And it is different than Spanish. It has some similarities. But, you know, when I go shopping at the market or need to get the oil change in my car, or get my hair cut or a dentist appointment, I do all those things in a different language now. And that really forces me to learn. So that is why I am where I am. And I just love it. And I love the pace of life. And I think from a both personal development standpoint and from coaching standpoint, it just changes the angle of the mirror that we as coaches hold up to others. And it just allows people to see things so differently. I guess there was once upon a time in my life when, for example, when I was the chief executive officer of USA Canoe Kayak, I just always had this idea that I needed to be like on the same level as the executives, the energy executives that were our sponsors when I was having a conversation with them. Today, I think living here and being where I am, I just give people the space to come down off the ladder and come down to where I am. Everyone pretty much works longer hours and harder than I do, but I think that creates an interesting point of reflection when I'm talking to clients. So that has a lot to do with where I am. Yeah, I think so. I think as we go through life, we gain our own perspective. I mean, I know that as coaches, we're always trying to help people reflect differently about where they are in life and about how they're going about change and how they're seeing that. On some level, that I think enjoying this life experience is ultimately going to come down to our sense of fulfilling our creative selves, like really bringing out like a high level of our creative self, like bringing good ideas forward. Like, I think that's what's going to make things unique. But I think to just say, oh, I want to get better at creative ideas, where I work backwards from creativity, are sort of two other C's. One is capacity. So I'm one of these people that really thinks about energy over time and really how we fuel ourselves to really show up with the energy that we need to do what we want to do. And then the other one is connection. Yes, connection to others. Yes, connection to nature, but most of all, connection to self. And that is just going to be like the never-ending work that keeps going. But I think that when that opportunity to shows up to do it in a hard way, and it is interesting because at the time that all three of us got to know each other, that was the biggest life change that I was going through at the time, you know, which was kind of coming out of a fairly long marriage and moving into a new chapter in life. And that was something that was happening in the background when we all were first getting to know each other and working together as coaches. And now, 5.5, 6 years later, I don't know what else to say. This has been the most amazing 6-year chapter of my life. Like, I am just so, I could not be, for whatever needed to happen in the first 50 years to enjoy these next 6 years the way I have. Like, I just hate the question, like, what would you tell your 22-year-old self? Because it just scares the bejeebies out of me that maybe something would have been different about these last 6 years that I've enjoyed so much.
I love that you are talking about the transitions. We've talked about that a lot this season. And it is a lot of a theme I see in what you post about on LinkedIn, what you talk about. What are some things that you tell your clients or to others when they are navigating life's waves and when they're in those transition points? Because you have some really poignant things to say about that.
So I'll tell a quick story about Whitney. You asked about surfing spectacular life waves, and I think this plays together. So what the waves represent to me, I mean, I really think the idea of a wave is very real in our life. I mean, in a very physical way and also in a very metaphorical way. But what the wave represents to me is like, where does the free energy exist? Like, where does the free energy exist that we can align with, that kind of allows us to sort of enjoy this experience with sort of an outside level of help, or what feels like an outside level of help? And what I see happening in the world is that there's no shortage of waves, and there's really not a shortage of people jumping on waves. I just think there's a lack of understanding about what that process looks like. And so for me, 2.5 years ago, Maria and I went down to southern Spain, and we started to work with a surf ski coach named Coach Boyan. And the first session started with a whiteboard session where he starts mapping out these steps to surfing a wave. And 5 minutes into it, I start waving my hands. I'm like, Boyan, this is terrible. Like, we just want to surf waves, like creative, artistic wave surfing. Like, dude, let's surf the wave. And Boyan, he's this big Romanian guy. He's like, Joe, I'm not trying to ruin your dude. Let's surf the wave. I'm just trying to give you a process for how to surf the wave. So when you fall off or when you're not getting the rides, you have a visual map of where you are in the process that allows you to adjust and reset and get back on. And that was the epiphany. Like, I realized inside of us that if we want to capture more free energy in our life, we have to think like inside of us, we have an inner artist and an inner scientist. Maybe we lean heavier towards one or the other, but ultimately, for me, like, I lean much heavier towards my inner artist. But what Boyan did is that he reminded me that, oh yeah, like, it's the scientist is just there to give you a little bit of structure and a little bit of framework so that when you fall off, you can start working on things like basic speed, check your direction, select waves that are the right ones for you. And then once you're on the waves and you want to make changes and shift and link waves, that you have process of ways of thinking about that. And all of a sudden, like, these idea of the waves became this point of transfer to a way of thinking more creatively and adding more context and richness to the choices and decisions that are before us in life. And so I kind of call this process thinking in waves.
I love that. Well, Iris, should we hand the mic over to the inner scientist or the inner artist in Joe?
Oh, don't make me think that much. So, as I said at the beginning, I love this podcast. So where I'd like to start today is I want to talk about my favorite 3 episodes, and I'm just going to say the guest name, and then I would love it if you guys would sort of give me a little bit of like just free association with what you remember from that conversation. Okay, and I don't want to put these in exact order, but I do have a favorite, which I'll reveal at the end of this process. So, Cassidy, Krug, what comes up for you guys?
Oh, well, we just talked about transitions, and Cassidy is out there with her book, and she did tons of interviews with athletes, and this was interesting. I don't think we talked about this on the show, but when I was doing the pre-interview with her, she said when she first started to sell the book idea, she just had interviews with Olympians and Paralympians. And what they told her was, we can't sell this. People don't want to hear just about Olympians and Paralympians. And she was bummed. She was like, but that's who I am. That's my identity. And so there was a bit of this transition point where she said, okay, I could either give up on this or I could keep going. And so the inner scientist in her said, let me see if I can interview other people. So she brought in the net. And I think from there, she was like, oh my gosh, there's so many parallels to the human experience of change. And for me, it was just very powerful. And it's also connected to so much of what I do and what I think about is, yes, we were athletes and had this experience, but so much of that transition out of athletics is connected to this wider human experience. Like, what is my purpose? And gosh, I have this one identity. What do I do now? So I thought those were really profound things to think. And so for me, Cassidy is very much aligned with what I'm thinking about today. Athlete transitions and change. What about you, Whitney?
Yeah.
Well, I love just being able to share with my clients, so many of whom are going through transitions, a little bit of a wave roadmap, right, to transitions and the challenges of them. And I think 2 things that stand out from like on a micro level. One, doing the research prior to the conversation with her and really understanding diving a little bit better, really understanding that she had to practice like 5 dives, like thousands of times. I just really appreciated learning more about the sport and the process of the sport and doing the artwork for it. Like, I looked at a lot of pictures of her diving and just the intensity on her face and of the muscles. I mean, again, it just gave me a deeper respect for the sport. And then I think she told quite a few stories of people in transition. And one of the stories she told was somebody who was a parachute instructor who jumped out of parachutes thousands of times, was paralyzed, and how this woman lived her life, how she went through the transition and how she could continue to choose connection and joy and a life that she wanted to live. And it just stuck with me. And so when I was in my moments of like, wah, wah, it was like, oh my gosh, Whitney, if that woman can do this, you can do this. So sometimes it's the little things from the episodes that stick with us. So those were two things that stuck with me. Thanks for the question, Joe.
And by the way, I think we can agree when it comes to book titles, Cassidy hit it out of the park with like the best one I've heard in a long time. Yeah. And as all of the three of us are athletes and we sort of think about like those moments of success, I can't think of another sport like when you are just hitting the pinnacle, you're underwater and you're just going deep and deep and deep for a while. And that idea of resurfacing, and I always think, by the way, my 2004 Olympic sports psychologist was an Olympic diver, Dr. Megan Nair. And I just always think when their head comes up above the surface, it's like, oh my gosh, like a new person has just come out into the world again. And so anyway, I just love that, the conversation that you guys had. Okay, second conversation, Connor Fields, BMX rider. Tell me about your kind of takeaways from your conversation with Connor.
You go first, Whitney. I want to hear from you.
I loved getting a little bit in there with his sport. Like, what is it like to do your sport? Oh my gosh, what would it be like every time you go to practice, knowing how high the stakes are and knowing how injured you could become and how focused you need to be. So I loved, again, learning what was required of his sport and how that wired him, for his life. And then I just had such an appreciation for him I think he comes from a culture, in his sport and maybe beyond, where sports psychology, getting support was not the norm, but yet he really embraced it. And that was, I think, a huge key to his success in being able to pivot from the success as a BMX racer to success in all these other realms, finding his inner artist. Right? Finding his inner artist in 100%. Other ways in life. And I think he's done a beautiful job of that. And, I see him on LinkedIn all the time, giving a talk over here, giving a talk over there. But so much of that had to do with how he faced all the loss and how he reinvented himself and how he was open to looking at himself and taking help and using the resources around him. So I had a lot of respect for him as a human and his journey as an athlete and as a post-athlete.
Excellent. Iris, what about you?
Yeah, so I definitely resonated with the piece about the openness to psychological health work, to getting a performance psychologist. And I think that what I'm seeing is a trend for athletes to be very open to that. That, when we grew up as athletes, the three of us, that wasn't a thing. You just had to, just outwork, right? Like outwork and you'll get there. But there is some reality to you need psychological help. And it's not just when you're broken, but it's also when you're on a day-to-day. I think it's part of your training. It should be part of your training methods. And I think that's the same for people outside of sport too, is, when you're a high performer out there, when you're in the C-suite, when you're trying to work up the ladder, and we've all worked with those clients, you need support. And I don't know where that mentality comes from, where you have to do everything on your own. We're human. Again, I go back to like the human experience. We're human beings. We need each other. So it was good to have that perspective. And he definitely comes from a culture where, and need I say, it's like bro culture, right? Like, where it's not really seen as something, it's seen as a weakness. And so it was really good to have him on the show, just to have someone say like, look, like, I know what the culture says and I know what it means when I say that I work with a performance psychologist, but there shouldn't be a stigma around it. So I'm really thankful that he was willing to share all of his journey around that. So that was great.
I think one thing I didn't actually expect in this conversation that we're having when we were talking about inner artist and inner scientist, I think BMX is a sport, flow and feel, a lot of flow and feel, where there probably is a little bit more resistance to the scientific side and more leaning towards the artistic side. And I think one of the things that I also took away from that conversation in the episode is that I think often people see a sport like BMX or downhill mountain bike racing, snowboarding as like, oh my gosh, daredevils, just those guys are just trying to survive. But I think when we get deeper into conversations with people like Connor, you actually see it's not survival at all. I mean, there is detailed and fine-tuned as as a professional basketball player, like trying to just, figure out what the right amount of knee bend is, or spring in your ankles, or bend in your wrist when you're shooting a basketball. And I love that part of it. It just helps us to sort of think that even in sports that appear to be just like kind of crazy adventure sports, like there is so much detail to it and doing it well. And then Connor also reminds us, and then there's letting go and having some trust in that process. So that was a wonderful conversation. Maybe my favorite, no, I'm going to go on record. My favorite Untrained conversation of the year, Kathy Delany-Smith. I just left that conversation thinking, how did I miss her, having her as a coach? Like how I would have loved at some point for her to have been my coach somewhere along my canoeing journey. I just love that conversation. So I'll put it back out to you. What comes forward to you for you guys in your conversations with Kathy Delany-Smith?
Iris, you have to go first.
Oh, I think she's definitely one of my more favorite episodes too. I can't, as someone who's doing the podcast, I can't say this is my favorite guest, right? Because they're like children, right? So they're all my favorite guests. But Kathy Delany-Smith, for me, it was one, I am very much into learning from female leaders. What was that like when you were up against you're in a culture and a sport where it's male dominated. And also, if you remember, Kathy didn't start off as like a basketball player. They're just like, we have an opening. Can you come in? Can you come in and help us? Right. And she said yes to all these opportunities. And one of the things that we talk about, Whitney and I, maybe off script sometimes, is, there's the balance of people leadership versus the sort of, I don't know if it's like either or, directive or people leadership, but things like, emotional intelligence and, vulnerability, that's all very feminine and sort of, again, like seen as sort of this weaker subset of leadership. And I know that now we kind of look at it as, gosh, if you want to be a good leader, you have to have all of these tools in your toolbox. So I think Kathy for us was really someone who showed like, how can you hold accountability, build a strong team, but also be a people-oriented leader? And it's not a weakness and it's not a woman thing, right? Because she talked about that. Like, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean it's like I'm erring on the side of like, gosh, this girl's dog died, so she should sit on the sidelines and, we're in the championship, so forget about it. And it's so sad. Like, she was like, no, when it's time to perform, get your shit together and get onto the basketball court. But she also said, and I will hug you and hold you when you're crying about all those things, right? So I think she was such a good example of how do you balance being someone who can hold people accountable to themselves, to the team, to the goals of the organization, and how can you actually care for these people and not burn out in the process? She was always very energized. That's the other thing is like, how did she continue to balance her life and have other anchors in her life so that she could care for her flock, care for her team, but also not burn out. But so I really liked her for that example for our audience. What do you think, Whitney?
Well, I'm in Cambridge. She's a legend. I've heard her name so many times. So from that standpoint, it was just a bit of a thrill. But, we have people on the Connor, the Cassidy, who are talking about untraining certain elements from their sport, right? And it's also such a gift to have folks on who are training people in such a way that they don't need to untrain. And I feel like it's such a testament to my work as a coach too, that she was, taking the time to do this emotional work, to do some training around vulnerable areas, and had extreme success. I mean, one of the things that I loved is she trained them to take compliments. Like, how valuable is that? How many of my clients have a hard time taking compliments? And she was perfectly willing to be tough. No, I'm sorry, your cell phones do not come to practice. They do not come on the games, right? She was setting them up for success, but she was also allowing room for their vulnerable parts and training them how to manage them in themselves and for one another. And so that episode, I sent it to my kids basketball coaches. I sent it to anyone who ever played basketball. I sent it around to a lot of people because there was just from so many angles, there was inspiration, there was wisdom, there was role modeling. And then it's just really interesting to get behind the scenes with a legend from this area. So thank you, Joe, for bringing that episode up for us to reflect on.
Well, Whitney, just two quick follow-ups to that. One, what you just said just reminds me of why I love spending time with you and what you see when I don't see things, like that idea of untraining, and then training. And I love just the way you see things that just don't appear to me. And then you say it, I'm like, how did I not see that? And I love that you pointed out. So that makes me so happy. And just two quick things about Kathy that came up for me was, number one, I am so happy that when you think about the longevity, how long she's been coaching, how happy I am that she is experiencing what she's experiencing today in the growth of the game for women versus when she started. What a journey for her. And secondly, I know that even when I'm looking at canoeing athletes, a sport that I know really well, I'm really bad at estimating how much people can grow in 4 years. I walked away from that episode and said, more people just need to have Kathy's faith for how young people can grow in 4 years' time. And that was amazing to me. And and by the way, that's between 18 and 22. Why not between 50 and 54? Why not between 34 and 38? Why not between 42 and 46? I mean, this is really her faith in that growth, I think, is so cool. So that was fantastic. I love this segment. Tell me a little bit about how both of you are untraining in your own life today. What comes up for you when I ask you, what are you untraining today?
You want to go first, Iris? It's
we don't have enough time.
9 hours.
I think it's been an interesting process for me because I'm in what Cassidy says, the murk, where I have transitioned about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago, from being a coach with my own practice to being internal to a very large corporate entity. And we just had an IFS episode. So all my parts of myself are they're all screaming at the same time. So I'm in the murk where I feel like I have grown a lot. I transitioned out of sport. I became a coach. And now I'm in this next phase of What do I want to continue to say yes to? What is more aligned with me? And how am I going to make that possible in my life? Because I do often find myself saying yes to a lot of things, feeling like, okay, this is going to get me to where I want to go. And if I just work really hard, I'm going to get there. And I am doing it to myself again. But I'm not going to say but I have more tools. I'm more aware of it. And I'm still untraining that out of me, is how do I slow down a little bit? How do I get more aligned with what I want? How do I continue to say yes to the things I want and no to the things that aren't going to serve me, that aren't necessarily always externally validated? So I think the answer to that is complex. I think I continue to be in a state of untraining, which is good because then we can just make more episodes of this. But I think that's kind of where we are. We just get a little bit better with each one of these waves, right? Like I can get on a little faster onto the surfboard. I can choose a little bit better of a wave. It's not like, okay, yesterday I fell off and I untrained, and then tomorrow I'm going to get on the board and I'm going to be a world champion surfer. Like that's what life is that you're like, okay, tomorrow will I choose a better wave, or tomorrow will I have more tools to kind of navigate what's happening today. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. It's an answer, but a non-answer. How about you, Whitney?
It's a meta answer.
It's a meta answer. Thank you.
It's a meta answer. Well, I think, as per usual, most of the times I'm untraining, I didn't choose to untrain. It's because I think failure and my own limitations are my greatest untraining teachers. So if I think about the book that I wrote, Body Image Inside Out, like there's a lot of things that I wanted to happen, that I wanted that book to create for me in my life that didn't happen, like lots of things. And it was really it's been really disappointing. And I've had to look, and I've had parts that wanted to just like double down on force and effort. But it was clear that wasn't working. And that was a gift, right? That's been an untraining gift to really look at, okay, the whole book was kind of about like alignment. Where am I not in alignment? And how do I get in alignment moving forward with all the things in my work life? So I think that's one area, using failure and noticing how I respond to it, and then trying to look at my own gosh darn work that I'm putting out in the world around untraining and alignment, and live by that. So I don't always, sometimes I have to be forced into it. And then I think my own limitations. I think I'm going to use the M word. I think menopause is a giant non-negotiable invitation to untrain. And by my own limitations, I mean, like in February, I think my quote to you was, Iris, I feel dead inside, right? It was like, I'm burnt out from trying to take care of the older generation in my family. I was burnt out from this, this book project, burnt out from my own hormone journey and how it affects me. And that was a huge invitation to untrain. Again, a lot of ways of efforting, a lot of ways of moving through the world. And I could feel the things that were like, no, I don't have energy for that. And I could feel if there was like a trickle of energy, besides the basics of sort of running my household and my business. So I feel like that was a giant opportunity for my body to do some untraining and lead the way, again, with alignment, with moving forward in new ways. So I've been a lot more attuned to what is flowing, where is there energy, where is there alignment, where is there success, sort of inside and outside. And I still get really tripped up with like, but I want more followers and I want more and and that can shut down a lot of my creativity and my flow. And so that's an area where I'm still really actively untraining, because again, how things are moving in the outside world and how they feel inside of me are giant indicators of where I need to do some more untraining. Did I answer your question, Joe?
It's beautiful. I would love to share with both of you my Iris and Whitney Untraining story of the season for me. I'm a 5-day-a-week runner. I compete in mountain trail running a few times a year. It's not so important to me, but I like to just get out and do something different in the competition sense. When I run, I am now more than 6 years into running with no technology. Nothing. I just listen to nature and I listen to myself. Like, that's it. So I was getting ready. It was the week of the Esquena Box race, which is the trail running race that happens here in Laseo. And it was Monday, and I turned the page on my journal, a journal that just looks, a small journal that looks like this if you're watching on video. And sometimes Maria, my girlfriend, will pick up my journal, and every once in a while, she'll just write a little message in the margins. And I turned the page, and there just happened to be a message, and it said, "It just doesn't matter." And then the next day, on Instagram, I see a reel of this amazing basketball coach, Steve Kerr, having a conversation with one of his players, and they're sitting in the bleachers during the playoffs, and he turns to his player and he says, you know, a couple of years from now, no one is going to remember this. It just doesn't matter, so just go out and enjoy the game. And I'm like, okay, that's twice. There must be something to this quote. And so we're on the bus going to the start line of this race. And listen, for people like the three of us that have been competing since we were young, we had like a competition code that was just instilled into us at a very young age. And it served us pretty well, like in a lot of ways. And it's not easy to untrain that competition code. And for me, that means showing up with a kind of a little bit of like irritability, a little bit of tension, a little bit of like, I need things to be my way. Okay, I'm going to embrace these words. It just doesn't matter. And guys, we started this mountain trail race and we start running up the hill, and I do well going up the hill. But if people were in front of me and it was hard to pass, like, I'm just thinking about these words. It just doesn't matter. And when we go down the hill, I'm not very good at going downhill, and the Catalans are just flying by me. And usually I'm a little irritated because I have to get out of their way. And it's like, oh, no problem. Just go by me. No problem. And so we get to the top of the second climb, and like, it's hard to tell how well you're doing or how well you're not doing. All I know is I feel great. Things are going well. And eventually we get to the park, the Olympic park where the race finishes. Maria's at the finish line. I have a nice little waving moment with her. And we, you know, talk to a few people, and we come up home and we have lunch. Hours later, I go online to look at the results. And I just like kept like scrolling through the pages because like I'm not seeing my name. I scrolled so quickly past the first page of results that I had no idea that my name was on the first page of results. Like it was insane like how well I did in this race. And the whole time, like, I was never under any duress, and I don't care about the results. The reason I can tell you it just doesn't matter is true because I don't even remember. I had a good race the year before, and I don't even remember it. And if I don't remember it, who else is going to remember it? So it's all about making sense of the experience that we're having today in a way that just becomes more enjoyable. And I just realized I had this Iris and Whitney moment, like I'm doing it. Like I'm untraining this really complex competition code that was instilled inside of me that served me pretty darn well for a long, especially in my younger years. It served me pretty darn well. And I could just see I've been holding on to it and holding on to it because it's just, why not? Until you give yourself the permission to let it go and try something different. And the result just kind of gave me a different awareness. It's not like, I don't really care that I was on page one of the results. I'm telling you a year from now, I won't remember this story that I'm telling you right now, but I'll remember how I felt about it. And that to me is why I'm so glad you guys are telling the story of Untraining and prompting people to do it. I think people's lives are going to be fine whether they do it or not. But if they choose to do it, which is a hard, complicated process, oh my gosh, like the best is still yet to come. And I'm so glad you guys are doing this. Thank you both.
Well, I think what you get is what you're modeling, what you modeled when you talked about the last 6 years of your life. You get yourself back. You get connection to yourself back. And again, on paper, your life could look the same, whether you got yourself back or not. But it feels different. The experience of your life feels different. And caring about that and giving other people permission to care about that is, I think, something you do so well, Joe. And we would just like to double down on that message here today.
All right. Last question for you guys. Doing a podcast takes a lot of work. There's a lot of preparation. This has been an amazing experience. I've seen a lot of things in how much preparation goes into this production. Tell me, what is your why, and what is it that you guys at this stage, after all the episodes you've done so far, what is it that you hope people are taking away from their experience with the both of you in all of these conversations?
You want to go first, Iris?
Well, I mean, I feel like we should have mic dropped after your story, Joe, because I think you told it well. We're seeking the peace ourselves, the peace and alignment. A place, for me, the word is freedom. And I think that as I learn the lessons and as we think through some of the challenges that we have, Whitney and I, because we talk to each other every day, either voice text or voicemail. And I think as we're living our lives trying to figure out how do we bring more peace, how do we bring more alignment, how do we bring more freedom to our lives, we want to bring that to our guests. We wanted like, hey, let's have this conversation with others. Let's bring more people on that could help answer some of these questions. Let's have Joe on so that he can help us look at transitions, change, and untraining in a different way. So one of the things that I think I'm going to say about Whitney that has drawn me to Whitney that I love about her is that she's always looking to not get better, but she's always looking for the answer, or always looking to see, like, how can I improve something? How can I shift something? How can I change something? And then also, how can I help others while I'm on this path? And so I'm very inspired by her journey as you continue to make it through perimenopause. You're not quite there at menopause. You put yourself in menopause.
I am. I'm there.
You're there.
I'm in the M.
You're in the M. So she's in the M. It's a place for us to be ourselves, to create together, to be in concert together, and to provide this information out in the world to others who might be seeking the same. So I find this podcast to be a giant privilege. And, you know, you never see our producer or hear from him, Scott.
Oh, yeah.
He's awesome too. And he's part of the party and family. And it's cool to be on a team, right? It sort of fulfills that need too. So anyways, Whitney is a big part of the inspiration for this, and our friendship together is a big part of this inspiration.
Well, that's always my number one, you know, because my husband asks me often, you know, of the why, because he's always trying to help me do less in my life. And I'm like, well, the first one is Iris. I like working with Iris. And Joe, as you know, in this independent work we do, we need to choose our teammates and we need to find ways to be connected to our teammates. So that is always my number one. And I love creating things. Like I'm someone, people are like, oh, you want to go to coffee? I'm like, I'd rather like go for a walk or like make something together. Like I like making things with people. It feels really intimate and joyful. So I love the opportunity to make things with you, Iris, and the skill sets you bring that I don't have. You know, it makes this so much better. And the co-creation, like I love the co-creation part of all of this. So my number one why is always Iris. And being on an untrained journey with somebody. I mean, the journeys we go on, we need people on them around us to strengthen that journey. Just like we need the teammates to make us better, we need our untraining teammates to make us better at this journey. So, and it's a creative process.
Well, as I turn the mic back over to you, I will just say that in my athletic expertise, well, in the Olympics, like you, Whitney, I paddled in a boat with another person. I was in a doubles canoe. And I still paddle a doubles canoe today with Maria and doubles surf ski with Maria as well. I think about those two-person collaborations a lot. And as I pass the mics back over to you, the two of you, Iris and Whitney, are a beautiful two-person combination. There is something here. I feel so lucky to have listened to these conversations from episode 1, and then also before podcast, knowing you and we all work together as well. And I love where this is going. I love the way that you hold space for each other, the way you challenge each other, and you bring just the right amount of your personal connection in to the conversations that gets the listener curious as to what we can do with that. So I just want to say thank you to the two of you for just this beautiful collaboration that you guys have created.
Yay, us.
I know. Doesn't Joe, you always make everyone feel so good.
I think we need like quarterly meetings with Joe.
I think the audience needs to also hear more from Joe. Your storytelling is so good. Weaving together all of these thoughts. It's very inspiring. Inspirational. All right, Whitney. What do we say at the end of every podcast?
God damn it, keep on training.
Keep on training. And you'll hear more from us because, like Whitney said, we want to feel more connected to the tribe and connect you all together. So more to come in the next season.